In this episode, we talk about a high-end B-movie starring the absolute king of B-movies and the reigning champion of camp.
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Campbell.
That's absolutely right. And once we're done with the movie, we go into some pretty important topics on locations, adaptations, and attaching an IP, and tone. Setting the tone.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's get in it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
I'm Danny.
And we are here to talk about an excellent B-movie. This is one that we would call a high-level.
Very high.
B-movie, yeah. So let's get going on this. What do we have?
We've got Bubba Ho-Tep.
Yeah.
Which is a B-movie. We had a little bit of a point of contention about this because I was like, it had studio distribution, but I didn't know that it only had a $1 million budget.
Right.
Yeah. So it was made in 2002. The director was Don Coscarelli. It was written by Joe Lansdale. He wrote the short story, and Don Coscarelli wrote the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Stars the A-lister of the B-listers. There aren't many, but Bruce Campbell, Ossie Davis, and Bob Ivy.
Yeah.
It was rated R. Very R.
Yes.
Again, the budget was $1 million, and the logline is based on the Bram Stoker Award nominee short story by cult author Joe R. Lansdale. Bubba Ho-Tep tells the true story of what really did become of Elvis Presley. We find Elvis as an elderly resident in an East Texas rest home who switched identities with an Elvis impersonator years before his death, then missed his chance to switch back. Elvis teams up with Jack, a fellow nursing home resident who thinks that he's actually President John F. Kennedy, and the two valiant old codgers sally forth to battle an evil Egyptian entity who has chosen their long-term care facility as his happy hunting grounds.
Yeah. There's probably a shorter log line.
Yeah.
But the more I looked, the longer they got.
Fair enough.
This was the most concise and on point.
Oh, boy.
With this. Yeah. So Bruce Campbell, before we begin, let's talk about Bruce. Why he's the A-lister of B movies. One, because he knows it.
Yeah.
He takes all of his stuff seriously, and he knows that he's in that B movie realm. But again, what's a B movie? So this one had a studio check, had studio banking and backing. But what made this a B movie was it's like all these other movies, they don't expect these, $1 billion returns.
Right.
Right. So again, let's go back to Marvel. They're called tentpole films. They pour so much into it because they expect, like 3, 4, 5 returns. International
distribution, that kind of thing.
Now, this one, Bubba Ho-Tep has, I think, as current as the numbers are, made back its $1 million budget and about $240,000 on top of that, which that's what a B movie is. They want to pay for it, but movie studios have to put things out. Yeah. And like Star Wars takes years to put together. The Marvel films, they have to plan it out to 2022 because it takes so long.
I know.
To film and put these things together. That's a lot of money. And it's, again, B movies are just they're films. They're the things that we go see to be entertained, maybe take something away from it, depending what it is, comedy, romance, little chuckle, little aw, some action. But yeah, they're not looking to get this whole worldwide following.
No, and this was designed specifically to be like a campy, goofy, oddball B movie.
Yeah, when we get to talking about it at the end, I want to talk about the adaptation, because this was adapted from a short story that was well, it's a short story and they had to make a feature out of it. So that's a whole thing I want to talk about. But let's get into this movie, Bubba Ho-Tep.
Yeah.
All right. So the movie opens up with old German newsreel footage, and it was, you got the feel from it that it was kind of old, right? And this, who knows when it actually took place, but I kind of thought it was almost like a World War II, almost like a Nazi propaganda thing, because they were really, pushing the, look what we found, look what we did. And it's about this discovery of a new mummy in Egypt. And then it stops with coming soon to a museum near you. And then we get some laid back music, and bam, we're in the present day, and we roll into a nursing home. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of ruddy looking.
It's grungy.
This is, not where anyway. I wouldn't pay to stay here for a night on a hard day of traveling. But this is a convalescent home. Yeah. So we come into, Elvis is in his bed, and we get a voiceover from Elvis. There's a lot of voiceovers.
A lot.
In this. A lot of Elvis narrating things. Mm-hmm. This particular one starts us out with a little bit about his woes, but then it ends up about the bump on his penis.
Yeah.
And to some detail.
Yeah, this is...
And evidently he's been having this issue with his penis bump for some time. And then his roommate starts coughing and convulsing. Elvis looks over at him, reaches over, throws on his glasses, and they're very 70s looking. They're very Elvis looking, thick, big, the Elvis glasses.
The Elvis glasses.
Yeah.
They're great. I like them. So he's wondering how long he's been in this convalescent home. And he's, kind of thinking about the good old days. He misses Priscilla and his daughter. Mm-hmm. And, he's very much missing when he was the king of rock and roll. Yeah. And the whole voiceover is pretty vulgar. I mean, the penis bump thing aside.
Yeah.
He's wondering, does Priscilla still want to fuck him? Or would she still want to? And
it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't the Elvis, the stage guy thing. This is a broken down old man who's
dirty.
Yeah, just this is where his shit sits.
Right. But it seems to suit the character pretty well. And mm-hmm. and I say this because the makeup on Bruce Campbell is pretty incredible.
Yes. They did an excellent job.
Yeah.
And it's with the makeup and his acting. Mm-hmm. Because, Bruce Campbell is not a newbie.
No, right? He's been around for a while.
He has. We think back to Evil Dead, right? And he's got such a baby face.
I love watching that because I'm like, oh, baby Bruce.
Every time he comes on, we're like, oh, look at baby Bruce. He's been around for a while. And that's another thing I want to touch on, too. With Ossie Davis, he's no longer with us. But mm-hmm. this guy has been in cinema and TV for decades.
Yeah.
Some big stuff, and all kinds of shows. But we'll get back to him. But Bruce knows how to, he knew how to play this character. And he did with the makeup. He looks old. But just his attitude and everything he projects through that makeup.
Yeah.
And it's one of those beautiful things where he does look like Elvis.
He does. And it's funny because I never would have ever thought, let's make a movie about Elvis. If I were the casting director, my first choice would not have been Bruce Campbell.
Right. Because that's a big thing.
I'd have never considered it.
That's a big thing when you're casting, is you need to understand the person you really want might not be able to pull it off because you can only do so much with prosthetics and makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course now they use CGI, so they could take
well, they can make entire CGI people now.
Right. Well, they could take Natalie Portman and make her look like Henry Fonda. you know, that we're busting those limits out. But yeah, that's the thing. He plays this so well, and with his voiceovers and everything, my thought was, Jesus Christ, Elvis looks like life has taken the fuck over train and just run him over on the tracks repeatedly,
Right.
Because yeah, he's just
yeah.
So yeah, he a little more voiceover, and you feel
the face fits the vulgarity.
It does, and it's just all so glum.
It is. Yeah, so then the guy next to him has been coughing and dies suddenly.
Yep, he just he goes.
Kicks it. Yeah, and then the undertakers, the guys removing him, are just not too careful or caring about it.
No.
They're very glib. They're very rude.
Yes. And we see him a couple more times, but that's their whole role.
Right.
Right? they have 3 1-minute scenes.
Oh, these
and that's
guys.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
It is. And it is done a lot, the Undertakers being very, in not just in this movie, but in a lot of other B movies. We talked about the coroner in Wolf Cop being like that. It seems to be kind of the thing to do, but it just, it's funny.
It is. I mean, it when done right. And we laughed.
Yeah.
Because, they did it right, And as they take him out, we get a shot of the sign. And so we confirm it's a rest home. It's the Mud Creek Shady Rest Convalescent Home.
Not a name that I would choose.
No. Well, purely for the movie. But, yeah. I don't know. Shady Rest. Because they use that a lot in films. Mm-hmm. Shady Rest Hospital, Shady Rest Old Folks Home, Shady Rest Convalescent Home, Shady Rest Retirement Center.
It sounds so dark.
It does.
But a lot of them are actually named after trees and stuff like that, which is...
Yeah, that's not how I see it. Someone starts wheeling me towards a place, and I see the sign, Shady Rest anything, wheelchair or not. I'm going to have a hard time getting my fat ass in there. No. So yeah, these guys, they share a couple of lines, like I said, and it plays to one of them is, kind of all right. The other one's just like a prick.
Yeah.
They kind of play off of that for the next scenes that we see them. The next thing we see is we're back in the home, and there's this old woman going down the hallway.
I know.
Right? And she's just trucking. And then she comes across an even older woman who's laying out in the hallway in a fucking iron lung.
Right?
And there's nobody around.
Why would you put an iron lung in the hallway? I don't know.
And there's no nurses at the nurse station. It's just this place is perpetually empty.
Ghost town.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, the wandering lady rolls up and just steals the glasses off of this woman in the iron lung. And then hobbles off. And as she hobbles off, she comes across a cart, just again, randomly stranded in the hallway, loaded with what looks like a bunch of treats and gifts.
Yeah, they don't look especially pretty or appetizing, but they're clearly gifts and things.
Well, they're going around giving everyone gifts and packages, care packages or whatever from their families or whatever. So anyway, the glasses thief rolls up to the cart, gives it a good look, boosts a cookie tin, and she's off. And then we're in her room a little bit later, and it kind of sets the mood. Lots of dolls and teddy bears.
It's creepy.
And those fucking porcelain dolls. We were just, our daughter went as a Skull Sugar.
Yeah, Sugar Skull.
Sugar Skull pirate. So it's pirate outfit from the Ren Fair, and we were giving it one more spin. Last year she was Zombie Dorothy.
Yeah.
And that makeup was so much easier to do. Prosthetics and stuff and skin flaps and gore was so much easier to do than to try and draw fine lines. Anyway, at the end, because, we don't have access to top-notch makeup. That white, the no smudge stuff was cracking. And our daughter pointed out, I look like one of those creepy porcelain dolls.
She did.
With the cracked faces. But even uncracked, they're just eerie.
I know.
There's just something about them. That's why they use them in so many things. Brooklyn Nine-Nine used them.
Yeah.
In that.
Oh, yeah, in that B&B.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oof.
And then the teddy bears look like they've been a little rough. They're old, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So she's in her bed, and she's snacking on some treats from the tin. And then there's a fluttering or clicking sound. She looks down, she sees big bugs.
Yeah.
Right? Shooting around. And then it's under her sheet. And all of a sudden it bites her.
Mm-hmm.
She looks, it's a scarab. Big. Huge scarab. Like a dessert plate size scarab. So she falls on falls onto the ground out of the bed. And she tries to kill it, but then, bam, there's a mummy-like figure. Real quick shot.
Yeah, you almost, you see it, but you don't get a lot of detail.
Right. Yeah. We don't get a full-on for a while.
No.
But this is to let us know it's not the bug that's the problem.
Right.
So then, we see it, and then we're gone.
And then we're with Elvis again.
Yep.
And he's in his bed, and he sees the old woman in his doorway, and she's kind of at the bottom, and her hands are like around the doorway, like she's being pulled away. And she says, "Help me," I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just vanishes.
And then she's gone.
Yeah. And he doesn't give a shit.
No. But Elvis is perpetual through all of these things that we're seeing. Elvis is in bed. He's waking up for these little thoughts, voiceovers, and things, and then he just turns over and just goes back to fucking sleep.
Yeah. It's weird. Yeah, so she's gone, and he just turns over in his bed, and then the next day we see the Undertakers again taking the woman out to the hearse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have their little exchange.
Little conversation. Oh, this one they mentioned deodorant or some sort of deodorizer.
Oh, right, because she was stinky.
Yeah. So they spray the back of the hearse with some sort of deodorizer, which, highly insensitive, but it plays to what this is all about.
Right. Yeah. And then for Elvis, time seems to go by in spurts and flashes. The nurse is in and she's out, and it's kind of like a sped up almost.
Yeah. At first I got the sense that he was just medicated.
Okay.
Right. And, that's kind of when you're in a perpetual state of being drugged, right? Things, you open your eyes, close your eyes, open your eyes, close your eyes. You see things, and it's like, boom, 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 But I think it was just more cinematic. Life is passing him by.
Right.
We find out that he's not drugged up.
Right.
He just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. It's sad. But so then he sees a pretty young woman rifling through a drawer in the room, and it seems to be his dead neighbor in the room.
Right.
Yeah. And she's just really insensitively like throwing this, big stack of pictures away. She pulls a purple heart out of the drawer and just throws it in the garbage can. And you get the feeling that she must be kind of a relative of the roommate. Right. Because why else would she be going through the stuff?
Yeah. It takes, it takes a bit.
Yeah.
There's a bit of an exchange. And, first we get a voiceover as she's doing this of Elvis, who's upset that she's bending over in a super short skirt. So as he looks, he can see, everything.
Right.
They're super tight fit, teeny tiny panties. And he's angry because he's just basically like, she's just bending over, because I'm so goddamn old. She shouldn't view me as any kind of sexual predator. I'm no danger to her. shit.
Right. Yeah. As far as she's concerned, he might as well just be, another pillow on the bed.
Exactly. Or just another dead guy in the
right.
room.
And so he asks her to keep some of the guy's stuff.
Yeah. She lets him, and we don't really get why. I know there's a voiceover, but I just didn't get much out of it.
Well, I think he feels a little bit of a, like, well, if she doesn't give a shit about this stuff, someone should. And I'm the only person who.
Well, yeah, I suppose I'll buy that.
Okay,
I'll buy that. It's just so glum.
It really is.
I mean, we're only a few minutes in, but it's just nothing but glum.
Yeah.
But we do find out that it is the man's daughter. Her name is Callie. Apparently, she's never been there to visit.
No,
because Elvis has never seen her.
Dumped him off there and never came back.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of that. Oh, things just blah blah blah. So anyway, Elvis gives her some shit for it. And then we get another voiceover because of this, and he's wondering if his own daughter would come to see him if she knew he was alive.
Right.
And it's really, again, just so, Bruce did such a good job emulating that in the voice. You just, the just resignation and sorrow in all of it, And then a nurse comes in. They get into a conversation, and this is where it's sort of like a quick unveil, kind of, all right, folks, now's the time to sort of, start peeling back the wrapper. And we learn that Elvis is Sebastian, an Elvis impersonator who broke his hip 20 years ago, falling off a stage.
Right.
And he gets into this argument saying that he was impersonating himself because he couldn't work as himself. And at this point, my thought was, some impersonator died and Elvis took his place.
Yeah.
Because we don't have anything else to go on, but that was my initial thought. And then we're in a flashback with the narrative. So questions will be answered. So we have Elvis has lost his wife. He goes on about he's lost everyone. He's surrounded by these life-sucking agents and managers. So he took a trip down south where he met Sebastian Half,
the impersonator.
When we meet Sebastian, he's played by Bruce Campbell as well.
Yeah.
Right? And they did a little bit less Elvis-y makeup on him as Sebastian than they did his as Elvis.
Right. He looked a little more like Bruce Campbell. A
little bit, yeah. And one of the things that you notice, it's funny because, yes, so here's this impersonator in this giant, looked like a gymnasium. It must be an old school building or something.
Yeah.
And he looks over and here comes Elvis Presley, the guy you're impersonating professionally, comes rolling up and he kneels down and kisses Elvis's ring like he was the Pope. I thought that was a wonderful little touch.
It's cute.
And he's looking up at Elvis and he's got all this pie on the corner of his mouth, right? Caught him in the middle of his snack.
Little crumbs.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, we're on the outside of the dressing room and out comes Elvis. And you notice he's got all this pie in the corner of his mouth. And there we have it. We get the voiceover explains that Elvis signed everything over to Sebastian and Elvis took up life as Sebastian. He wanted to take a break.
Yeah.
Still do his thing, but not be Elvis, right? Live like a normal guy, but still sing his songs and do all that.
Yep.
So they had a deal where they could switch back, but Elvis blew up his copy of the contract in a barbecue accident at his trailer park.
Yes.
That took out a couple trailers and everything.
It's pretty funny.
It was. It's just so simplistically tragic.
I know.
And that's the one thing about this film that makes it so fun is everything is so simple.
Yeah.
There's not long reaches. There's not big setups. It's in the moment, just like, Walsh would do a barbecue accident. We see him strutting across the trailer park to some ladies, all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
It's everything in the background. So with that gone, he's stuck as life as Sebastian.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the present, and of course the nurse and Callie are laughing at him. As they leave, the nurse looks back, says she'll be back later to do that thing that has to be done. You know, she nods towards his groin, referencing his. Yeah, let's not go.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the beginning of this movie is actually pretty depressing.
It is. There's not really any levity. The jokes don't fall flat, but they're funny because they're tragic.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's not belly laughs in the first part of this movie.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's funny, but you feel a little bad about it because you're like, this shouldn't be funny.
It shouldn't be, but that's what makes it fun, you know?
Yeah.
Is we think of a lot of comedies, you know, even go back as far as like Three Stooges, Marx Brothers, you know, silent movies, Charlie Chaplin. Everything that was funny is because shit just happened to him left, right, and center.
I love Charlie Chaplin.
I know, you know, and then you've got Buster Keaton and you've got Harold Lloyd. Their whole thing of humor is, and it's essentially slapstick, you know, back then, you know, someone getting hit in the face with a spoon. It's fun. Makes me laugh.
Pie in the face.
Pie in the face.
The classic.
Well, how many times do you want simple one-liners? I'll be somewhere in the house. You'll hear me cackle out, and you just say you adore me because of it. You know, you can't help it. You just hear something and I can, you know, and that's what these things were so far in this movie.
Right.
It's sad and tragic, but it's just the delivery. And that's important.
It is.
Because Bruce Campbell's doing a really excellent job delivering this misery. And up till this point, still we're only a few minutes.
Yeah. And you feel bad for this guy, even though he's in this weird kind of Inception-like prison of his own making, where he's impersonating an impersonator that was impersonating him.
It is Inception.
And he's stuck in this shitty nursing home with a pustule on his penis.
And everything he ever knew was gone. He either lost it, and more importantly, he lost the ability to ever get it back because he walked away from it. Right,
because even when he does tell people, I'm Elvis, they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you are. You know, here's your stool softener.
Right.
Oh, man. But yeah, it is depressing. It's just, you know, you're 10 minutes in, 15 minutes into the movie, and it's dark.
It is. And cinematically, the tone is very, very dark as well.
Very, super well shot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's zero complaints about the cinematography in this. Everyone was on their game. This was a full-on film.
Right.
But yeah, they succeeded because I remember the first time I saw this, you know, it had that feeling like, God damn, did I make a mistake?
Isn't this supposed to be a funny movie?
You know? Yeah, and this is back before streaming. So this is, you know, got the DVD.
Right.
And I made the fucking commitment. I put it in the machine. I've got this bad boy, you know, for 72 hours. This is what I was going to spend my entertainment time on. And it's not like, you know, now you can just, fuck this, go find something else, start it up and go, right? You lost 15, 20 minutes. No, this is a whole trip to the store and everything. So I'm like, I got to push through this shit. You know, and in my heart, I'm like, I'm sorry, Bruce, but this was supposed to be, you know, funny. And I've had a few chuckles, but yeah, this whole movie feels like fucking death.
I know.
But it works.
It does. If you can get through the first part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and most people will, you know, unless they're in that. Is this what I chose to spend my only free time on? God damn it. So we break from this depressing thing and we go outside for some more airy depression. So we have Elvis is sitting in the yard of the home with Jack and
Ossie Davis.
Ossie Davis. Oh man, I love this guy. I can't wait to talk about him a little bit later. We learn that he thinks he's President Kennedy. Only after everything happened, it was a big scam. He didn't get shot. They drugged him. They took out some of his brain and
replaced it with What did they replace it with?
I don't remember now.
Rice.
Something to fill it in, but yeah, for the whole scam of Kennedy getting assassinated. And he goes on to explain they died. Well, because Bruce's like, you're black, right? And he's like, well, they dyed me.
They dyed me this color.
And hid me here. So... And then he points to where where they took some of his brain. He actually does have a scar on the back of the base of his skull.
Yep.
On the side of his neck. So then we shoot from that, right? Mm-hmm. That was the information we needed.
Just our intro.
Yep. This is Jack. Yep. So we know what he's all about already. Night, and Elvis is sleeping again, and he's dreaming. This time he's in a Cadillac convertible. He's driving somewhere in the desert with the top down, which I thought was brilliant. Now, I'll admit, I have never read the short story.
I haven't either.
So I don't know the source material, but I thought this cinematically was fantastic because a convertible driving in an open desert is the epitome of freedom.
It is.
Right? Escapism. That's every closing shot of every, kind of happy thing where they're driving off into the sunset because we don't use horses anymore. It's in a convertible, hair's flying, and they're just like fucking free.
Right.
So I got that. I thought that was great. But then we find out he's on his way to do a gig as his own impersonator. And he talks about he's enjoyed being Sebastian, this freedom.
Yes.
This, no fucking agents, no pressure of fame. I'm just some fucking guy who shows up for a gig and then nobody knows about me when I leave. And then he has his accident and he falls off the fucking stage.
Yes.
Breaks his hip.
Breaks a hip. Oh, man.
And there's one thing that I want to note at this point, because I had thought of this originally when I first saw it, and all the time since, and then when we watched it again, we looked up notes.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one hint of Elvis music, not even hummed.
No.
Right?
Not a tune, not a note, not even a lyric.
Nothing. So did a little digging on this, and it seemed odd, but it makes sense because they had $1 million budget, and it would have apparently cost almost or a little over $500,000 to license just one Elvis song for this movie.
And that's way too much for a movie with $1 million budget.
Yes, it is. That is ridiculous. And it's funny when I read this, the disparity between it. So let's jump out a bit. So Deadpool, right? Ryan Reynolds, he was in charge of the budget, and
he really wanted that shirt.
He wanted to wear a shirt with a picture of B. Arthur in it. Now, if you don't know, folks, B. Arthur was in the Golden Girls. She, back in when I grew up in the 70s, she was on a show called Maude, and Maude was the grittiest, roughest, toughest bitch to ever come along. She was the epitome of women's liberation.
I fucking love B. Arthur.
I know. And as a person, she is fantastic. Well, she has a foundation, right? And after her passing, the foundation, is obviously carrying on her work. So Ryan Reynolds had to call up and get their permission to use her likeness in the film.
On the shirt.
Yeah, on the shirt. And they were really chill about it.
They were like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, for a $10,000 donation, we'll give you the rights.
Yep.
Use it as, it's yours to use in the film. And at the, and he was conflicted. He's like, that was great. $10,000. Shit, I couldn't ask for better than that. But when I have this tiny little budget, that's $10,000 for a T-shirt for one scene. Should I have worked it in more?
Right.
So it's so funny. $10,000, right? And they just want a donation, and they were okay with how he was going to use it and everything.
Yep.
$500,000 to license a song that you would only ever get to play a piece of.
Yeah.
Right? And if you paid that much money, you probably would put it in the end credits.
I would put it in the movie.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but you'd have to, no one's going to want to sit through a whole Elvis song in the movie.
Right. That's fair.
Right. It's not an Elvis movie.
No.
But what I'm saying is they'd use bits of it in the movie, but then they'd play the whole thing during the credit sequence.
Sure.
To get their money's worth, which for $500,000 doesn't even come close.
No.
Does not even come close. So, yeah, half the budget.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so if you've seen Bubba Ho-Tep, that's why there's no Elvis music. If you're going to dive into this bad boy, don't look for it.
Yeah, don't be expecting Elvis music.
Not one bit.
No. So, back in the nursing home, back to the movie. It's the middle of the night, and Elvis has to piss. And he does not want to use the bedpan.
No.
He picks it up and he looks at it and he's like, nah, I'm gonna make it to the bathroom this time. So
this time.
Right. So he hobbles to the bathroom with his walker and he hears a noise. And he looks back into the room. And on the floor is the tin of cookies or candy or whatever it is that the old woman stole.
Right.
Yeah, and there's stuff all over the floor. And he's like, "Whoa." So he goes and investigates, and underneath the tin is the giant scarab.
Yes.
And it flies up and knocks him on his ass. And he's not having it. So he gets up and he's going to fight this beetle. Walker in hand.
Yep.
And it's so fun. This scene is where the movie really starts to pick up.
This is the launching point for a quicker pace, and now we're
in it.
Yeah, we're into the horror aspect of it now.
Right. So the scene is so cheesy and campy. It's this big goofy bug flying around the room, and Elvis is fighting it with the walker. He's like waving the walker at it and ducking, and surprisingly spry.
Yes.
Considering how much effort it took him to get to the bathroom.
Right. Well, I think the adrenaline kicked in.
Right.
You know, this is some nasty shit happening. Mm-hmm. A little bit of energy.
Well, yeah, if there was a giant fucking beetle in my room, I'd be super energetic about it.
That's the kind of thing that wakes you up from a dead sleep.
Yep.
You know, I wake up groggy. But yeah, when that's happening...
Yeah, I'm not a morning person. No. I don't like to wake up.
It's those life or death emergencies, though. Let's switch that channel on high. Deal with it.
Right. So, yeah, it's flying around the room, and he ends up catching it in the bedpan against the wall.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. So he lifts the bedpan away from the wall, and the bug's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And obvious, you know, if it were me, I'd be like, oh, well, it's in the bedpan. But it takes him a minute to figure that out.
Right. Well, and it's a standard shot.
Yes.
Right. He turns towards the camera. The bedpan, the whole part is facing the camera, so he can't see it. It's facing away from him.
Right.
And we see this giant fucking scarab in there.
Holding on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it flies out, and there's a little more of a scuffle, and he finally spears it with what I thought was a grill fork, but later they're in the dining room, and I guess it's just a regular fork that they use here.
That was my thought. I thought it was a grill or a roasting fork,
right?
Because it looks
it's a 2-tine fork.
Yeah, it's substantial
and it's big.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird.
But no, you're right.
They use it later in the dining room.
You see them eating with this kind of thing.
I don't know. And he fries it in a lamp, and he says, "Little bitch cock." I'm sorry.
Try it again.
I'll try it again.
It's hard to do the king.
Oof. He says, "Little bitch cockroach like you should know. Never ever fuck with the king." And I love it.
It was and then it's followed up, right? So after he says that, he gets up, and then we see the hallway, and then he steps out of his room into the hallway, and there's nobody around.
No.
And this is one of the funnier lines. My favorite one's coming up though. But he looks up and down the hallway. I think we got some major bug problems in this place, man.
Oh, you did this voice great.
Oh, no. Thank you. But yeah. Anyway, I loved that. That was one of those things. And that's the humor.
Yes.
Right? The previous one, Little Bitch Cockroach Like You, that was kind of a camp delivery.
Yeah.
But it hit the mark. For me, this was just, there's some kind of fucking bug problem in this place, man. After all this, that's all he can think to say.
Right.
And then the best part is, because nobody's around, he starts to go back in the fucking room.
Right.
But then he hears a sound.
Mm-hmm.
So he's waddling away with his walker, and the sound comes from Jack's room. So he goes into Jack's room, and this was, the thing I like about this is the setups of, you know, what's real, what isn't. You know, they off their rocker or the nuts or not. So in Jack's room, there's pictures of Jacqueline Kennedy, Lee Harvey Oswald, some mobsters, including Jack Ruby.
Right.
Right. And they're not just like news clippings. These are like framed photos.
Yes.
All
on
over
the walls.
the room. Right. And then this is what killed it for me. There's a fucking diorama of the Dallas motorcade shooting on his table. Oh, Jesus Christ. So anyway, we see all this, and then we see Jack on the floor. Mm-hmm. So Elvis walks up, tries to wake him up. Jack, doesn't come in. Mr. Kennedy. So he comes, Jack wakes up. Did you see him go by? And Elvis like, who? Jack's like, the one they sent. And then they get into this big conversation about LBJ behind the conspiracy that, Yeah, we don't need to go into that.
Anyway.
So a little later, the nurses are tucking Jack back into bed. Elvis is in his room. I think the administrator's there.
Yeah.
And there seems to be like some questions, like, but they don't get into it.
Right.
I think it's just Elvis, another voiceover at this point.
Well, and it's clear that the people in this nursing home think that they're both off their rockers, which, I mean...
Well, completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pay no credence to anything. So after the voiceover bit, then Elvis gets into the bug problem.
Right.
And then he has a weird exchange with the administrator.
Yeah.
And that wraps it up. That all this has gone on because fucking nobody's around. Right? And so I'm kind of wondering, where the hell was the administrator? Where were the nurse? Where are these people hiding?
Where is everyone?
Because it is dark.
It is.
Like closet in the corner without a light in it dark. In this whole place once the sun goes down. And not one person making rounds. Nobody's sitting at the desk because they do show like the nurses, the corner thing. Mm-hmm. Fucking nothing. Not even a reading lamp.
No one's anywhere. It's weird. Yeah. So then the next day, we're treated to the nurse. We're back to this. Are you all right?
Yeah. We're just bringing a plot point around.
Yeah.
We're revisiting it.
This is a recurring issue, you guys. So she's putting some cream on his dick.
Yep.
That should stop the pus. There's a long discussion about it.
Yes. Very long.
Yeah. And as she's doing it, he's obviously going somewhere else because he doesn't want,
This isn't his thing.
No. So he's thinking about the events of the previous day when suddenly he pops a boner and he's like, whoa. He's really excited about it.
Oh, he is. Because earlier when he was talking
really
about...
He's really proud too.
Well, he is, because when he was talking about Callie being in the room and her not viewing him as a danger, he does go into this bit of a diatribe of, I couldn't, if I had, nothing's been happening forever. Right. So, yeah, that's fun. And he gives the nurse a hard time about it.
Yep.
As much as he can. And she's a nurse. She's cool. She's not getting all worked up, but she's just dismissive of it.
Right.
Like, oh, you. And just, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that I thought is, right, I get it. Right? This is exciting to him. This is something,
he didn't think this could happen anymore.
It's been a long time. But the one thing I thought was, in that instance, who would try to sell their goods?
Right.
When you have pus pouring out of it. I mean, what are you thinking is going to happen? Because he does say something to her about, why don't you just hop right on? And
yeah.
And I'm thinking, dude.
Oof.
Are you... Oh, it's just so nasty.
You're just falling apart over here.
I am, because it was just so funny to me the just the way the scene played out, and then just everything I was thinking of, the absence of realism in his brain, the reality of the situation, that, I've got this great big oozing thing on the end of my penis. That's like walking into a singles bar saying, name a letter of the alphabet. I've got it. Now, Oof. who's going to come over to my pool party? And expecting people to line up.
Oh my gosh.
So then after that, we're at dinner and we are introduced to another interesting individual. Guy's dressed like the Lone Ranger, right?
Yeah.
And he is referred to as Kemosabe by Elvis, because apparently he doesn't know his real name. Or if he does, he doesn't care. Just calls him Kemosabe.
Right.
And apparently they were friends at one point in the home, but now Kemosabe doesn't know who he is anymore, who Elvis is anymore.
Right.
So Jack is sitting across the table staring hard at him. At this.
Yeah.
And this is where he gets that...
The fork.
Yeah, where he lifts up the fork and he's looking at it. And yeah, so for both of us, that moment of...
Like, oh, maybe that was a regular fork, I guess?
I didn't take a good look at the plates.
I don't know.
I mean, we could have stopped and gone back, but what the fuck are they eating that requires a fork? Is this like East Texas silverware?
Right. I'm wondering if it's something that maybe is designed for people who have a hard time like picking up food. So Elvis the next night is dreaming. And he wakes up to the sounds of scuttling. So he looks in the doorway and he sees, we learn through a voiceover that it's his daughter. I know that you thought it might have been Callie, but if you listen, he says, oh, is that, he thinks it's his daughter.
Right, a silhouetted figure.
Yep. But then he's woken up by Jack, who wants to show him something. And Elvis is not about getting out of bed.
No.
But Jack says, and this is how he kind of entices him to get out of bed, is that he says that he knows that Elvis is Elvis. He's like, I know that you're the real deal. And all I want to know, I want to make sure that you had nothing to do with the conspiracy to kill me.
Yep.
And Elvis is like, yeah, no. So then they're fine.
Well, it was his call to arms.
Yeah.
This is Jack Kennedy asking Elvis Presley, I got to show you something that's important.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, there we go.
So they go down the hall to the bathroom. And Elvis is pretty confused at this point. And Jack wants to show him some graffiti that's been written on the stall wall. And it looks like hieroglyphics.
Right.
I say that it looks like hieroglyphics because it isn't actually hieroglyphics.
No, they used a number of, it was mostly nonsense, but some of it was based on Coptic, some of it was based on hieroglyphics, some of it was based on other area, regions of the era kind of thing. Yeah. And
Jack has translated it, and he tells Elvis what it says. It says, Pharaoh gobbles donkey goobers. Cleopatra does the nasty. And it's fucking hilarious. It's just standard bathroom graffiti.
Well, there's a point where Elvis is that what it says? And he said, Jackson, well, it's as close as I could get it.
Yeah, that's approximately right. And Jack is telling Elvis that last night the guy had him on the floor and his mouth was over Jack's asshole.
Yeah.
And he explains that this guy was trying to suck his soul out of Jack's asshole.
Yeah.
Which apparently, I guess, you can suck a soul out of any major orifice in a person's body.
Well, by this time we've seen so many films where they draw things out through the mouth and the face and stuff. So I guess at some point to be different, soul can come out of an ass. If it's a hole in the body, you can draw it out.
Well, it's different.
It is. While this is all going on, we're outside the nursing home and the nurse is having a smoke. she hears some noise, goes to look, and there's a small building. Apparently, it's a gardener's shed.
Yeah.
And there's like all this electric light, like fucking Frankenstein's lab.
Yeah.
All these light bursts.
It's crazy.
And stuff. And she's just kind of looking at it. And then out of nowhere comes this ninja administrator, right? And starts giving her shit that she's
taking a break.
Yeah. Tells her Mrs. Fiddlestein is waiting for her enema. And neither one of them are concerned about all this weird ass light stuff going on through all these windows. So she leaves, and then we cut to the shed, and the door's open, and there's a body on the floor, and then what steps into frame are some gnarly looking cowboy boots. And we see just enough of them that the legs coming out of the top of them definitely look mummy-like, monster-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like bits of flesh and stuff, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's building.
Yep, but we don't get to see any more at this moment.
Nope, that's it.
We go back to Jack and Elvis, and they're doing research. And apparently Jack has this collection of books having to do with the occult and soul stealing.
He's got a lot of books, and he also loves books.
Yeah.
Yeah, because later on he'll go out and get more books.
Right.
Or go to where the books are.
Right, but he happens to have some books that deal with this highly specific problem that they're investigating.
Exactly.
They learn that some people, if buried properly, can come back to life and exist on the souls of the living. And they determine that a mummy must be coming into the nursing home and sucking souls out of the assholes of the elderly.
Yes.
Which seems like a reasonable conclusion to draw. Are you all right?
I love this movie. This is when,
it's ridiculous.
I mean, I've seen it dozens of times, since that first time.
I've seen it a handful of times.
Yeah. And just every time, this is where it just all starts really coming together. Like, yeah, God damn, I'm glad I sat through that 20 minutes.
That really depressing initial 20 minutes.
Yeah, because it really, it's almost like a 180 at this point. We're really getting some levity, and we're getting the motion.
It is.
And
it's like a laugh a minute now.
Yeah, and not to throw out spoilers, but it's a huge payoff. Starting the movie like that is great, because when you start out with something, you either A, want to come back to it, or B, you want to end on the note that's polar opposite.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, that was a good move, even though it ran the risk people hitting the eject button or switching the channel.
Right. And I've done that with movies.
I have too. Now see, if I had gone to see it in the theater, I would have sat through, because I paid my money, and it's like, this is not the kind of thing I want to go up front and argue for my money back.
It's only happened one time for me, but I have walked out of a movie in the theater.
One time for me as well. The whole thing with this, it just tickled me, because it's just so. So okay, we got Elvis Presley, we've got President Kennedy, who apparently has all these books on the occult, specifically dealing with what's happening here, almost as if a just in case,
right,
kind of thing, right? So as they're going over all this stuff, getting back to it, Jack simply asks Elvis if he wants a ding dong, and here it comes again. I'm just going to give a little warning. This is the kind of thing that's thrown in there that Bruce Campbell is so fucking good doing, and Ossie Davis is so good at doing, just this benign humor.
They're so funny.
It is. The exchange. Describing it isn't going to do it justice, but seeing their interactions. So, then it goes into, Elvis looks at him, and, Jack's like, well, not my ding dong, but a ding dong, a chocolate ding dong. And he says, come to think of it, mine is chocolate now since they dyed me. And then they move past it. Elvis is just impressed that Jack has a stash of Hostess ding dongs
and other stuff,
and other stuff.
Yeah,
because contraband.
He's got like a whole drawer full of junk food.
So So we don't get to see his full elation of what goes on there with the tasty treats. We skip to Kemosabe's room, and he wakes up, and there's a mummy leaning over the asshole of his roommate.
It's so great.
It is. And Kemosabe sits up, pulls out his toy shooters.
Yeah.
And click, 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 click,
Yep.
just shooting at the mummy. And then we cut right back to Jack and Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
And Elvis wants to know why an Egyptian mummy would be writing on the shithouse walls. Jack says he probably went in to take a shit and got bored. He's probably used to writing on pyramid walls.
Yeah. And
Sure.
Yeah. And this is actually, I mean, it seems like a weird point for me to have thought about this. But one of the things that they did for this movie to keep the budget down is something that sounds easy, but in reality can be actually very difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we thought for our short film, we're like, oh, we're only going to need like 2 locations, the restaurant and the park.
Right.
We didn't actually think logistically like, oh, we're also going to need a bathroom. And that was an interesting location hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really consider that you can't actually, there's a scene underneath the table.
Right.
We didn't consider that we would need to actually rent a space as a studio to pretend that people were sitting under a table.
Right.
We kind of figured we could just
well
have a table.
And to be fair, for that project, I mean, when we started out, we were just the writers.
Right.
Right. We weren't supposed to have anything to do with production, but we had everything to do with production.
Everything.
You know, so we didn't think of that in
Right.
advance, you know.
Yeah.
But it became a reality. So
Became a thing.
Yeah, finding a location to do most of your shooting is hard. The restaurant had a bathroom.
It did.
But there's no way we could have shot in it.
No.
It wasn't big enough, and it wasn't the right kind.
It wasn't the right layout. It didn't have the things that we needed.
Right. And
yeah, it was just, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, to keep your budget down, minimize the number of locations.
As much as possible, yes.
Yes. And I think they actually might have found a beat down old nursing home or hotel and just shot there. Because the level of grime and in this place.
Yeah. I didn't find info on it when I was throwing all this together, but it seems like they did. Because again, jumping back to the flashback where Elvis meets Sebastian, like I said, it's this, it looks like an old school. Like he's in the gymnasium because there's these giant push doors. Right. And it says, Sebastian Half. Like it's his dressing room. Yeah. And outside there were kids like playing basketball in a gnarly looking half court. Right?
It is.
And they're like in an alley going up to the door to this building. They go in, and then he opens up Sebastian's door.
It's like a warehouse.
Yeah, and he's like, it's like the Green Mile walk.
Right?
Coming across this, I'm like, God damn, that's a big room.
I know. Huge dressing room.
And it's weird because it fit the aesthetic of everything else. It was
did.
Big and all this, but it was also like sad and dismal.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know.
I don't know.
But, yeah.
But, yeah, it seems like an easy thing. Like, oh, we're just going to have 1 location or 2 locations. But it's actually really tricky to keep locations to just a handful while still maintaining pacing and timing and a sense of time passing. And it's a lot trickier than it sounds. And, hard to do with a short film, even harder to do with a feature. And there are really just, I think there's less than 20 locations all together in this film. Right.
Well, and here's the funny thing. Where you point the camera, right?
Yeah.
Point it this way, you're in one location. Swing it around 180, you're in another location.
Yep.
Because point it north, you've got yard that breaks into a vacant field.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Turn it around, you've got the back door to an old building with a fence and everything. So you don't have to move.
No.
You've got 2 locations, but even that's still hard.
It is.
To do. But it is something that you strive for.
Yep.
Because the less places you have to go, the less people you have to pay to set up and tear down, the less differences in lighting and, wiring the sound, and
the less production days you have to do.
Absolutely. And the less hunting you have to do.
Oh, man. Yeah. So that was something that just kind of popped into my head at this point as we were watching the movie. I was like, they did a really good job with pacing and timing, and they did a couple little tricks to make it seem like time was passing.
Right.
But overall, they did a really, really good job of not making it seem like this is a 2-location movie, because it isn't. But
no, they did really well.
Yeah.
Now, back to the scene. We're still with Jack and Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're getting into a conversation about crapping out soul residue.
Right.
And suddenly there's whispers out in the hallway. That kind of thing. Gets their attention. So they look at the door. And, of course, Jack warns Elvis not to go in the hallway. Elvis says he's not sleeping, so he's fine.
Right.
Okay. Now... goes on, there's no mummy from Egypt and everything. So Elvis takes Jack's cane, hobbles over and peeks in the hallway. And there at the end of it is a mummy. And this is it. We get to see the full mummy.
It's so good.
He's got his cowboy hat on, Old West attire, and he's just lumbering towards Elvis. And as he's passing light fixtures and stuff, that's where all the flashes and everything's popping and the crazy light and electricity and stuff. So that explains what was going on in the shed.
Yes.
When that was happening. It stops in the doorway and gives Elvis a stare.
Yeah, it just stops and turns and looks directly into his soul.
Yeah. Just really, deliberate and perfect.
Yep.
As he gives him that stare, Elvis starts having all these, some of it was flashbacks and some of it was, I guess, from the Mummy flashbacks. Because we see some of Elvis things going on. We see Egypt. We see some random people, someone being made into a mummy, a bus crashing off a bridge. Intermixed with all that are shots of what are supposed to be Priscilla and, you know, his daughter and, Lisa Marie and all this stuff and his past life, which they allude to because, again, they probably weren't able to pay for the likeness use. And then the bus... and that bus crashing off of a bridge is where it stops. And then the mummy looks forward and meanders away. And then all of a sudden, Kemosabe is there.
Yeah.
In the hallway.
He's chasing him down. Both
of his little toy 6-shooters ablazing. Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Shouting, asshole, asshole. And I found that most humorous because, one, the mummy is an asshole. And two, that's his preferred doorway to the soul.
Yes.
So it still tickles me. The wordplay.
Yes.
In that. And it's really kind of almost inspiring. But then he just drops like a sack of fucking potatoes to the floor.
Right.
He has a heart attack.
Yeah. He was having absolutely no effect on the mummy whatsoever.
None. not like in Bad Taste, where he goes, pop, 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 pop. And the alien's like, ah.
No. But his adrenaline, I guess, did him in.
Yeah, it was too much. This is probably more, well, for all of them. This definitely has to be more than they've ever done since being in that home. Because we know Elvis has been like bedridden. It's
the most exciting thing that's happened to
with
them
his
since
bumpy,
they got
pussy
there.
dick. Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
Who knows what Jack's been up to? He seems like he might have been pretty mobile.
Jack seems pretty spry.
Yeah.
And like pretty with it, except for his whole Kennedy thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, yeah, poor Kemosabe's gone. And then there's another one of those weird cut scenes where nurses and stuff are coming in out of nowhere. And they're trying to give him CPR.
Where did they even come from? They weren't there before.
Right. And again.
That's fine.
The bzz, bzz, psh, 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 of all the lights and the electricity and, No, doesn't bother anybody. So Jack and Elvis are looking on. And this was really nice. So while this is going on, this is probably one of the nicest voiceovers in the film, because it's Elvis. He's basically giving this great little soliloquy on life and Kemosabe, and there he was, and his whole thing was, gone down with both guns blazing.
And it's his first time in a voiceover that he's not talking about himself,
right, or anything woeful. He was, say what you want. It's that whole thing of, guy might have been out of his fucking mind and all this and that, but look at this situation. He didn't just roll over.
No.
Right? He chased this fucking mummy to the end with his toy pistols until he dropped. And that's kind of like a statement right there. And I believe that because later on we get to something like this.
We come back.
Yeah. But that's kind of a big, going down with both guns blazing. Fucking do something.
Right?
Right?
With your boots on.
Yeah. But I thought that this voiceover, it actually gave me a little lump.
Oh.
In my throat. Because it was the first sweet thing that Elvis has either talked about or like come up with on his own.
Yeah.
Because before this, it's just been one long, my life is shit.
Yep.
It was over a long time ago. What the fuck am I still here kind of thing. So, yeah, the voiceover, they lied to about what happened to the people.
To the nurses and the administrator.
And this is where we get the name, finally. Yeah. So, Elvis is going on and killed by some kind of Bubba Ho-Tep.
Right.
Bam.
Yep.
The christening.
Yes.
This is the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from here, we know it's on.
Yep. And that is the mummy's name.
Yep. That is the mummy's name. Bruce has kicked it off.
Yep. And we didn't really cover it in the beginning, but at the very, very beginning of the movie, it has, occasionally movies will have this like a quote or a definition of things right at the beginning of the movie. And this one, it broke down Bubba Ho-Tep into two things.
Oh, yeah. Well, it did it backwards.
Right. Ho-Tep.
Ho-Tep, which is lineage of the pharaoh and a dynasty of pharaohs.
Yep.
Right.
And then Bubba, which is, the backwoods or southern good old boy.
Yeah. Bubba.
So, hence, our cowboy mummy
Bubba Ho-Tep
is Bubba Ho-Tep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we get another scene with the Undertakers bringing Kemosabe out. And after this lovely, nice soliloquy about Kemosabe by Elvis, the Undertakers accidentally flip him over the porch and into the bushes.
Yep. Jesus Christ. It's slapstick. It's simple, but it made me chuckle.
Yeah.
And also,
and they're actually a little embarrassed about it.
They are, that fucking poor guy.
Oh man. Yeah. So they like surreptitiously, try to like scoot him out of the bushes. They're like, nothing happened. It's fine.
And then they just chuck him into the hearse.
Yep.
Well, and then later Elvis is out front smelling flowers. So the nurse calls to him, chiding him that it's time for his nap and being, very that sort of stereotypical.
She's patronizing.
Yeah. And it's not really stereotypical. Having been around like great grandparents, great aunts and things like my grandfather's family, a lot of them were in these places. That's it's kind of how you have to be, right? When it's in a convalescent home, this isn't like a retirement community. This isn't Sun City in Arizona where everyone's tooling around on golf carts, right? These people are 80% bedridden. Half of them are, gone.
Yeah.
They're Elvis. They're the president, and who knows what glasses stealing lady, what her bag was before she got schnookered.
Oh.
But when they play it in Hollywood, there's that extra little element they bring to it that just makes you bitch,
right?
You know,
You're like, he's a person.
yeah. Well, show some respect, but gets on his nerves.
He's not having it.
No, because right about now he just rails on her. Shut up, you patronizing bitch.
Yeah.
And he just rips into her. She just gives that stone face, turns and leaves.
Right.
Right. And you're thinking, all right, it has kicked off because Elvis is getting his stones back. He's not just taking it, right? Because he takes a lot.
He does.
Up to this point. And then all of a sudden we cut to Elvis at a door. And I guess it's the back door of the nursing home. Because he's like looking at it, and then he's got a voiceover wondering how the mummy vanished. How did he do that?
Right.
So with his walker rattling away, he starts trolling off to do some investigating, ends up by a creek. And this is one of the most uncomfortable scenes is aged Elvis with his walker trying to go down a steep bank of a creek.
It's not very steep. It's like, it's not quite a gentle incline, but I don't know that I would call it super steep.
Well, it's not like a 70-degree angle, but it's not a gentle slope.
No.
And it when you look at it, it kind of was, but you can tell by the angle of the camera they were exaggerating it.
Yes.
Because he was doing a lot of sliding and slipping. and to be fair, right? This is Bruce Campbell. You're not going to give Bruce, dress him in a robe, give him a walker, and say, all right, I want you to half stumble, half walk down this very steep embankment. First of all, he'll probably give you a big fuck you because he knows where his money making is.
Yeah.
His body, right? It's like a sports star, Go ahead and get any NFL quarterback and say, here's what I want you to do. I want you to base jump without a parachute. Let's just see how it goes. Right? No.
No.
No. Every bone needs to be solid in this body.
Yeah.
And also the insurance would have been horrendous. So we got Elvis hobbling down this embankment and things start coming together. He sees something in the creek and it's a license plate for a bus. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden he looks up and there's a bridge nearby. Click, click,
right.
Click, click, click.
The things he saw in the vision are starting to come together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now they spare us the journey back home. And they make up for it. We cut to Elvis's room and he's hobbling to his bed. He's like 5 steps away. And you just can't help but look at the guy and think, oh man, he's fucking had it.
He is beat up.
He has had a long goddamn day.
Right?
He is really, he does it so well. You just feel how wiped out he is. And then we got another voiceover. Elvis believes he has cancer, but everyone's keeping it from him because he's old. So he grabs his ointment and starts medicating his dick. And this is there as this is all going on. There's this squishy yeah. Did that bring PTSD?
Maybe.
It is unsettling to hear and watch.
Yes.
They're not showing the actual lubrication, but it's just the squishy, squashy sounds. And you've got Elvis just moaning with discontent.
Yeah.
Like all this is going on. It's like, oh yeah, back to this. This is my life. Oh. Which actually leads, I mean, it's a great, we have piecing the stuff together. Mm-hmm. Right? As a viewer, okay, he's got some things going. He gets back, but then that momentum slows down again.
Right.
Because that moan, like as he says, like, brings him back to where he was because he's worn out from all this.
Yeah, from getting down and back up that hill. Oof. So he starts musing over all his regrets again.
Yeah.
And he's starting this like spiral back into self-pity. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't get too far into it because Jack interrupts his musings. And Jack's really excited because he's been doing some research.
Yes. He's been out doing his thing.
Yeah. He's been out and about, and he has a relative that helps him, like, get books or something. His niece, or I don't remember.
Yeah, something to do with the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
not important.
Yeah. So he discovered that some thieves broke into a museum and stole a mummy. And they took it on a silver bus, and the bus was washed away by a storm.
Mm-hmm.
And they think the mummy was cursed and was accidentally released from his prison.
Yeah.
And is now somehow in the rest home, feeding on the elderly.
Right.
So he thinks he knows where the mummy came from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, yeah, he's like, we know what we're dealing with now. I guess. So he's got a plan. And he's going to sleep during the day so he can stay awake at night when the mummy goes around feeding.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Elvis is like, he's on board.
Yep.
He goes, and I love this line so much.
I know it.
You might do it better than me.
You want me to do the voice?
Do it. Do the voice.
Okay, hold on. So Elvis looks at him with agreement. Damn straight. Comes in here tonight. I don't want him slapping his lips on my asshole. You like that?
Yeah, I do.
That's such a bad Elvis. It's embarrassing.
But it amuses me.
So we go from that to another Elvis voiceover and a little self-reflection. What do I really have in life except this place? Ain't really much of a home, but it's all I got. I'll be damned if I let some foreign graffiti writing, soul-sucking son of a bitch in an oversized cowboy hat and boots pick my friend's souls and shit them down the visitor's toilet. That's the line. I can't pull the voice for all of that, but I thought that was
long,
great.
But yeah,
and it got a chuckle out of me.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Elvis to be a hero, right? So he does have something. As shitty as this little home is, he's got Jack. I mean, this is his
right.
That's his friend. Chemo's gone, and all these people, they didn't ask for this. They don't deserve it.
Right.
So time to step up. Yeah, so this is funny. So he calls Jack, who answers on a red phone. And I thought that was awesome because it's the same kind of phone they use for the hotline to the president.
Oh.
And all the war rooms, it's always, been depicted as the red phone. Yeah. Okay. And he tells him, we're going to kill us a mummy.
I love it. I'm going to make you talk in that voice all the time now.
No, you're not. Pull it together.
Okay. So they get their tools ready. And their tools are rubbing alcohol, a lighter, scissors. Jack tells him that he oiled his chair.
It's ready to go.
Yeah. Yep. Ready to go. They have their uniforms ready.
Yes.
And their big plan is to light the mummy on fire.
Oop.
That's about the sum of it.
Yeah.
So the key words for the night, they say, and this is a quote, caution, flammable, and watch your ass.
And that got a chuckle out of me too. Oh, man. So next shot, it's clearly later. Elvis is in one of his famous caped outfits, all white rhinestones.
Yeah.
The shoulder cape.
The Elvis outfit.
Yep, the Elvis outfit. The kind of outfit that only Elvis Presley and Lando Calrissian could pull off.
I know.
Right? Because Lando Calrissian is the only other human being. And plus, you don't see capes in science fiction after the mid 60s.
No.
Billy D. Williams, though, he's the man, acting or not, who could pull all this shit off.
Right.
Because he is just top.
I know.
Just top.
He's fantastic.
So we got him in his suit, and Jack is in his most presidential, just beautifully pressed, crisp, clean suit.
He looks good.
He does. And this is, costuming. It's not hard to figure out a costume for Elvis.
Right.
Right? We're just going to get one of his stage get-ups or, mock one up. But when it comes to suits, okay, having worn a bunch of suits, I've never looked as good as a president because I've never spent that kind of money. And you have a choice when it comes to props. Now, they could have spent some money and gone out and bought a high-end, really nice suit like an Armani or something. But then you also have a costuming department, which is usually comprised of people who can just throw shit together out of fabric. Yeah. Kind of like going to Hong Kong. You can get all these great designer suits made with all the great materials for, $10.
Right.
American, right? It's crazy. So anyway, Jack's looking really good. Very presidential. And it just, I don't know. I just wanted to point that out because it just jumps out.
It does.
And, suit's not always a suit. So he's in an electric wheelchair and they're doing they got the slow-mo heroic walk. The hero walk.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go do it. So then they're outside all of a sudden, filling the sprayer with rubbing alcohol.
And gasoline. What could go wrong?
Nothing. So Jack asks Elvis what's hanging on his neck, and it's Elvis's medicine bag.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a sweet moment. Opens it up and pulls out a picture of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Not Lisa Marie, it's just some kid. Don't get excited, folks. And Jack's like, there's no time for regrets, Elvis. We were the best fathers we could be at the time.
Yeah.
Like, get your head in the game, man. Now's not the time. Can't go back and fix it. We got to deal with this Bubba thing, right? So Elvis is carrying the sprayer with his walker. Jack is in his wheelchair. And off they go to kick all this shit off.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we're in a park. Jack is wheeling along, looking about diligently. And this is the line out of all of them that tickles me the most. I enjoyed it so much. It's so short, so simple, but I don't know. It just gets me. As Elvis is standing by some fences looking out at Jack, we have this voiceover, and I'm going to play it.
Shit. Bubba Ho-Tep comes out of that creek, Betty's going to come out hungry and pissed. We're not trying to stop me. He's going to jam this paint can up my ass and jam me in that wheelchair up Jack's ass.
I love that line. I might pull it and make it a ringtone.
You could.
Anyway.
You might not want it to go off when you're in public.
Oh, I don't care. I don't care. So, yeah, we have that. And then off we go to the next.
Yeah, so he's still at the fence and he lights a cigar.
Right?
Well, he's carrying this can, and I think it's like a weed killer spray can or something.
Yeah, it's you see weed killing pests. You give it a couple pumps in the air pressure, and you just got that weak little hose.
This can of highly flammable shit on his back. Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bubba Ho-Tep shows up.
Yep. Bam. He's there.
Yep. He's there. And Elvis is like ready. He's got the spray can. He gets it ready. And then Bubba vanishes. And Elvis tries to get Jack's attention.
Yes.
But Jack's fallen asleep.
Fast asleep.
Yep.
As presidential as it can be.
Yeah. Well, it's late.
It is.
And they've had a really exciting night so far.
Yeah. Even though they've had naps.
Yeah. But then Bubba creeps up behind Elvis, who fights him off with the walker.
Yes. That rickety old fucking walker.
I don't know why, but I love in movies when they have someone fighting someone off with a walker.
I know. It's that thing. I don't know. Maybe we're weird.
Maybe.
But, it is. It's one of those, just those things. Just so funny.
It is. It's hilarious. But he loses the flammable stuff, the can of stuff in the scuffle.
Loses his spray. Yeah.
Yep. And so he tries to pull some Elvis karate moves.
Yes. And for those of you who have ever seen an Elvis footage, Elvis was was a karate, martial arts student.
Yeah.
And after he started learning, he started incorporating that in his stage performances. He would just like break from a song and do his punch, 2, 1, 2 with his punches and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and Bruce Campbell does such a good job mimicking it.
Yes.
Adding 40 years.
Yes.
To the end of the game, you know.
Oh gosh. And instead of scaring the mummy, Elvis just seems to pull some muscles while he does the karate moves.
There's a terrible sound.
Oh.
And a terrible look on his face.
Yeah. But somehow during this, Jack has woken up.
Yes.
And he turns up, and then the mummy disappears again.
Yes. Gone.
He's just poof there, poof, gone.
And then, well, Elvis then sees Bubba reappear. He tries to warn Jack, but it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
So Bubba knocks Jack out of the chair. It's looking grim. You know, Elvis is trying to figure out what to do. Jack is fighting Bubba. And meanwhile, the wheelchair has taken off.
Yeah, on its own.
Yeah, it's circumscribing the park.
Right.
It has somehow circled around behind Elvis and scoops him up.
Yes.
And he heads towards Jack and Bubba in Jack's chair.
Yep.
And Bubba is trying to take Jack's soul. And, Elvis whistles, "Come and get it, you old dead sack of shit." And Bubba goes towards Elvis as he's in the chair.
I'm sorry.
Should I stop doing that?
No.
I want to throw you off your game.
I love it. Oh. So he manages to save Jack. And he sprays the flammable stuff on the mummy.
Yeah.
And lights him up.
Yes.
And Bubba goes down pretty quickly.
He does. He staggers and...
Yeah. And you're like, oh, mummy done.
Mummy done.
Yeah. So Elvis goes to check on Jack. And Jack's like, "I'm at the end."
Yeah.
Yeah. So he hands Elvis a piece of paper, which evidently has some curse or something that he researched.
It's some warding spell from the Book of the Dead.
And he says that Elvis has to say it. He says, "You got to take care of business."
Yeah.
And then Jack dies.
Jack's gone.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It is.
So Elvis, he doesn't want to, let Jack have died for nothing. So he opens up the piece of paper and he says the curse. And it's so dumb.
It's just it is. It's like a super bad 3rd grade poem.
It's woof. Yeah, the chant against evil from the Book of Souls. And Elvis is not impressed with it.
No. So it's funny because he reads this. Like, what is this shit? Is this all and all of a sudden Bubba's up again.
Yep.
And then he says to Elvis, and it's translated in a super, "Eat the dog dick of Anubis, you asswipe."
Right.
So apparently this gets Elvis rustled.
Yeah.
So he gets back in the chair, throttles it. He's racing towards Bubba. They clash, sprays more alcohol, punches are thrown. And then, because it's going so fast,
yeah,
the chair flies off the bank by the brick. And down they go. When they hit the bottom, Elvis has a rib that's popped through his chest. He sprays Bubba yet again. Bubba's just pounding the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And then suddenly Elvis finds his strength and he punches Bubba Ho-Tep off of him. He lights Bubba up again. And this time as he burns, the captured souls are flying out of his body.
Right. And if they could afford an Elvis song, I think the moment where Elvis finds his strength is the place I would have put it in.
Yes. That would have been the moment.
Yeah.
As we said,
no,
there are none. So we just go with the flow.
You're right.
So then we're a bit later. What's left of Bubba is sitting in the creek, floating in, with little bits above it burning.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis is worn out, laying on the ground, looks up at the stars, and the symbol appears and superimposed, all is well.
Yeah.
And Elvis said,
Do the voice, do the voice, do the
Oh,
voice.
God. Okay. Elvis says, thank you. Thank you very much.
I love it.
And then he's gone. And then we roll credits.
The end.
The end. That is Bubba Ho-Tep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about some things about this.
Yes.
So one thing that we had talked about was this had a $1 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
We have The Room.
$6 million budget.
$6 million budget.
Oh.
If you were to play these in a split screen, it's decidedly
Night
clear.
and day.
Yeah, absolutely. Night and day. Everything on this. Now, there are some bloopers. Like there's a hand, like when the wheelchair goes over, the hand that pushed it real quick. You know,
Yeah.
there's some boom shadows from the boom mic and things. Little things like that. Okay.
Things that most people don't actually notice.
No, but there also, don't think, that shit happens in a B movie, because there are top-notch films. We fucking slammed Game of Thrones for their stupidity and
Coffee cup.
yeah,
And
I don't give a shit what's going on. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for that.
No.
It's different when you have a scene and someone's at a table and they knock over their mug, and then you have to reset and reshoot the scene, and then the mug is on the right side.
right.
That kind of shit happens. Because even editing Alice, it's killing me, because there's shots where there's close-ups of Greg. He's got his arms up, and then there's the wide shot, and his arms are down. And then another cut back in, his arms up, arms down. And there's nothing you can do
Well, no.
unless I hire a CGI expert to, digitize the entire film and animate it. At which point, we'll just make another movie.
Worth considering, maybe.
I don't know. But anyway, those little things aside, this was a top-notch movie. The only thing that made it B was the amount of budget.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it was a wide release, but not long.
No.
And it wasn't their A list.
No.
I like to call them nuggets, right? That's what B movies are. Everyone has their big bag, okay? And in that big bag are the giant presents,
Okay.
a couple of them, but the rest of it's full of nuggets. And if you have 100 nuggets, all told, those will bring in more money than the one.
Cumulatively, yes.
Cumulatively, yes. Now, it's a little bit different today because the comic book phenomenon, with Marvel, Iron Man, they've tried so many times.
Yeah.
Captain America, Spider-Man in the 70s, all that. Iron Man was really well done, and it caught everybody's attention.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, we can run with this.
It was good.
It was good. They found the right mix. So anyway, let's get off of Marvel. Bubba Ho-Tep is a top-notch film. It really is. It delivers on all of the levels. It's not horror like we've come to do it today.
Right. It's not scary.
Right. And it's a comedy. It's a horror comedy. So
Yes.
you have to trade in some of the hardcore horror.
Right.
Right. Because then the comedy seems really out of place. you know?
Yeah.
It's like you get to a point where, what are you going to do for a joke? Well, I don't know. Do we have him, fuck the neck hole of the headless body? I don't know if that's funny as much as fucking scary sick.
Twisted.
Right? It'd be hard to make, but there are films
there
that
are.
have tried for that joke
I know.
and fail. Hard fail.
Yeah.
But everything about this movie is above the line. The sound is good. We didn't have any weird things going on. Right. The lighting, it set the mood.
It did.
The only criticism is the beginning, but it has a
Right.
purpose, because that somber ass long beginning that makes you as the audience member think, fuck, what a miserable existence.
Right?
Right? Elvis towards the end, that whole thing of, all I have is this shitty place, but it's my home.
Right.
So we see him coming out of that, and Elvis goes out guns blazing. Like
He does.
Kemosabe. So his little voiceover with Kemosabe does
Yeah.
real well. So the writing was really good in bringing that around.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned after we watched the movie, because I was kind of stuck on, I was like, this is such a ridiculous concept. And, they got Bruce Campbell, the king of camp, to come in and do this. And it's weird and funny and quirky. And, it's just fun from beginning to end. And then you were like, it's actually a really good story of redemption.
Yeah. That's from the first time I saw it. And every time I see it, and it's been a while, but we had it on our list because we wanted to talk about it. So we rewatched it, and it still feels the same. It's a story of redemption after a life of regret, sorrow, and loss. And I think it's so not in your face, right?
No.
It's heavy. We talked before about, backstory and stuff. Get rid of that shit if it doesn't belong. It's burdensome in that the backstory and everything in Bubba Ho-Tep, it weighs on you, but not like, oh, fuck, here comes more, it all builds where Elvis is completely. And there's no guessing what his motivators are.
No.
Right. And why it helps you feel that loss. Cause 20 minutes in,
you're like, why?
Oh. This is like a Debbie Downer of movies.
You almost feel like the end can't come soon enough.
Right.
For Elvis.
Right. But then we hit those key moments, So it makes me think, and I don't know, again, we haven't read the short story, but it made me think how, other than Bubba Ho-Tep sucking the souls out of assholes of the elderly.
Well,
how much of this whole Elvis representation could have been true if Elvis hadn't died, right? And I'm not saying Elvis would have switched place with some impersonator, but when Elvis passed, people were already imitating his act.
Right.
Elvis had a very specific range of music.
Yep.
And that's what Elvis was.
You know an Elvis song immediately when you hear it.
You do. And
even if Elvis isn't singing it,
right,
you know it's an Elvis song.
And when you go to see Elvis, there was an expectation, the suits, the whole thing, right? But times were changing. Elvis's music wasn't really evolving. I myself never saw Elvis as someone who could evolve. The 80s would have hit.
Makes sense.
We would have had the glam bands. Right. We have heavy metal wearing huge makeup and high hair and the whole thing. Even the groups from the 60s and 70s were switching. Kiss jumped off their hard rock and they pivoted to some more 80s style rock. Yeah. But see, all these people are still rocking and rolling today.
They are.
Because they moved through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts. And they're still out there pounding it. And anyone who's still alive and has enough members of their band are still out there kicking it. I mean, David Bowie, before he passed not too long ago,
he had just put out a new album.
Yeah, still right. And you know what? People buying that shit up.
Oh, heck yeah.
By the millions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see Elvis as having done that. So that was one of the things was, is this, it's spoofing the whole Elvis conspiracy thing. But I think what made it believable for me was, this is how it could have maybe ended up.
Right. Mummy aside.
Mummy aside. But hey, I also believe in some supernatural. So I don't know. I think East Texas has a few more stories they haven't shared with us.
Well, perhaps.
Let's talk about locations.
Yeah.
So you'd mentioned earlier, single location is like optimal for shooting.
Right.
If you can, right?
Yep. 2
locations, not as ideal, but better, right?
Well, yeah, two's not out there. Right. It's doable.
Yeah. And even 3, if you can find the locations and make them work.
Right.
That is an incredible thing. And for small filmmakers, that is like the number 1 recommendation. Fine. And not just us. So many people say it that are out there, even like the top directors. Like, just grab your fucking iPhone, stick it on a tripod, get your friend to let you use his apartment because it looks better than yours, right? Or they've got a nice window or something about it.
Right.
Right? You don't have to do all this Hollywood bullshit. And that's where people get lost.
Yeah.
And that's the saving grace of a film like this. Now, I don't know. Maybe they did build those sets, but they built one set, right? The interior of the nursing home, if that was a set.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
saying. Small filmmakers, though, don't get much build sets.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Unless you're doing it over a long period of months, like Space Trucker Bruce.
Right. And we'll talk about that coming up. Right. We're going to be having an interview with Anton, the creator.
So excited.
I know.
And Carl.
Bruce himself.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, that'll be coming up after. Well, for some of you, it will come up sooner than others, depending if you're a patron or not.
Right.
But everybody will get it eventually.
Yeah.
But building the sets is ridiculously expensive.
It is.
You know, in terms of materials. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know how to do it, like we don't, we'd have to hire, someone to do it. And to make it as believable as this, I mean, you really have to get top-notch carpenters and lighters and electricians and stuff. You got to deal with, departments and codes and all of that. And it costs money. If you can find a location.
Yeah.
Right?
That already exists.
Yeah. And to do anything like this.
Maybe just dress it up a bit.
Yeah. And let's break this down. So if you're making a small film and you're shooting in your friend's apartment, you can, if the script, that's what the script is, do it. Okay.
Yep.
But when you're going out to locations and stuff, no matter how small your film is, technically you should have insurance.
Right.
Now I'll let you in on a little secret.
Shh, don't tell them.
Not everybody who makes a small short film has insurance.
What?
Moving on.
Anyway,
and sometimes you can do guerrilla shooting. That's a thing to do, but there's risk involved.
Well, yeah, because if you're caught guerrilla filming and someone has an issue with it.
Right, there's trespass, there's all kinds of things. Then the city comes in, do you have a permit? Do you have all this? Do you get blah, 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 But anyway, hey, if you're a ballsy filmmaker, that's what you do. Sofia Coppola, guerrilla shot half of that movie.
Yeah.
Lost in translation. People weren't expecting, that whole, like the 5-point intersection in Tokyo.
Yeah.
She had three cameramen just running around trying to keep everyone in the shot.
Jeez.
During the live crossing when the lights changed. Yeah, there was no permit. There was nothing. And she radioed, done, and they just brought them down. And they were a small handheld, so they weren't like the big, cinema reel.
Yeah.
It disappeared into the crowd.
Interestingly, there was recently a news story in our little town that we live in where there was a young filmmaker in town, and they were filming at night on a street. They were guerrilla filming.
Oh, yeah.
And in the movie that they were filming, one of the characters was a police officer. Mm-hmm. So they had a guy dressed in a police officer's uniform in a police officer car, and they were filming the scene. And this guy had posted signs around the neighborhood saying they were going to be filming on this date between this time and whatever to let people know.
Yeah.
But some citizens called the police.
Yeah.
The police arrived on the scene, and it took a while. It was a confusing situation.
It was.
Because the police thought that the actor playing a policeman was also part of the police department.
Yeah.
For a little while. And it was kind of a kerfuffle. But that's one of the dangers of guerrilla shooting.
It turned out they did get a citation.
Yeah.
Because here's the little thing. So if you have a cops and robbers thing going on, folks, any municipality, you need to get a permit.
Right.
You need to get it. You need to put in, submit your shooting schedule. Mm-hmm. You need to have all this set up because it is illegal for you to have flashing red lights.
Yep.
On your vehicle for any reason whatsoever. And then if you got some guy dressed up in a blue shirt and it says police department, even the generic.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking for some stuff. Now, the fines weren't hard, and it was kind of a lighthearted thing. But also, as a filmmaker, it is your responsibility to do the right thing. And guerrilla filming and stuff like that is very appealing because it's kind of been the trend now. like all these little, all
right.
these
It's very
fucking,
edgy.
yeah, festival films and stuff. And I think you do what you got to do, but I also think some people do it kind of like, you know, like they shave their
For
head
the
into
sake of doing
for the
it.
sake of doing it. Yeah, they like shave a mohawk on their head. It has nothing to do with who they are. It has nothing to do with expression. They're just doing it as some sort of like cosmetic thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because, well, if I'm a director, I have to have some weird look.
Right.
Or some shit like that.
Listen, here's the thing. If you want interesting production stories, you don't have to manufacture them.
Right.
They just happen.
They will, even on the like tightest, most organized.
Planned everything to the last second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing but disaster is going to befall you in tiny little moments.
Yeah, you don't need to manufacture quirky stories for your production.
So, yeah, getting back to that, someone could have gotten killed.
Right. They also had one of the actors had a gun.
Yeah.
Not a real one. It was a prop gun.
Right.
But that was why the complaint was filed. Why someone called the police.
Yeah. And let's take that to a level. Okay. So filmmakers, again, if you're going to be doing this kind of stuff, you need to fucking be smart about it, because Wisconsin is a concealed carry state.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of states that are. And I'm going to talk about Texas, because Texas is like the one state where nobody has any compunction whatsoever to pull their weapon and draw down on somebody who's pointing a gun at someone else.
Right.
In like a robbery. And not going to get into that whole thing. Okay. But here's the reality, folks. Okay. That level of carelessness starts to rank into the realm of fucking stupidity, and shit could have gone very differently.
It could have.
Very differently. So it's kind of, what a kerfuffle. But there's also ramifications. So things that you need to learn from this, like we said, they've managed this wonderful movie.
Yeah.
With as few locations as possible.
Very little money for a major production.
Right. And what they also did is the locations told a story.
Yes.
Right? The nursing home told a story. It set the mood. It set, not only is his life shit, but look at this fucking place.
It was almost a character in itself.
Yes. And that was because they had, top people on their game doing this. The cinematographer lit this thing brilliantly.
Right.
The director of photography. They framed it, they lit it. All the details were there.
Right. The overall color tone of the movie.
Yes.
Set the mood really well.
And it's a horror comedy, so it's going to be campy.
Well, yeah.
But it was really, really well done. So I think the biggest lesson is your locations. All right. If you're trying to come up with what could I write? Because a lot of these small directors are also the writers. What can I write that I can conceivably shoot? Okay, so if you think, well, my friend Johnny's got this awesome apartment. What kind of story can I write that circles around that? Go ahead and write it for that apartment.
Right.
But if you're writing something like, I want to write this story, okay, get it laid out, but be cognizant of, are you trying to do like a 15-minute short film where there's scenes in Tokyo and Australia and it's just like whirlwind? Because some of them do.
They do.
Okay, but these guys, like, they beg and plead for money.
Yeah.
And they get tons of money, right? I know there's some short films that have had $400,000, $500,000, $600,000.
It's crazy,
right? But they're really well done, even though they're super short. But they flew to London. They flew to whatever. They paid for all the stuff to get taken over there. They had to get the permits, the licenses, the passports, accommodations, all that stuff.
I know. I have a friend I grew up with who flies around Europe and makes little short films and, is fairly successful at it.
Yeah. And, and that's fine if you have the money. So if you write this, big thing, you have to boil it down to, all right, so I have this script and this is what I want to shoot right now.
Right.
I'm not going to get this kind of money. So what can you do to boil it down? Now, also doing short films, and like around here, there's really not any studios. Okay.
Well, I mean, there are, but they're private and they have a specific purpose.
Well, there are companies that do to shoot commercials, the commercial stuff, and commercial footage and things like that, or that advertising agency stuff. Yeah, they have studios, but like when you go to Hollywood, right?
Oh,
There's
shoot.
blocks and blocks and blocks of studio space.
You can rent a studio on just about every block.
As well as what Tommy did,
right?
For The Room.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he found a studio and rented it.
Mm-hmm.
Not totally available everywhere, especially if you're like in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not going to have much to do. So you got to look for some kind of space. Now, if you can find some people to make a set, yeah, you know, and I don't know what it would be, but there are places like the Elks Club will let you, you know, certain times of the year, we'll let you take their conference banquet room, whatever, because they rent those out for weddings and stuff.
Right.
You can go into places like that and say, okay, you got to sign a bunch of paperwork and put a huge deposit down, right?
Yes.
But you can get that place for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
So you can set up your corner of an apartment that you could never afford to get into for shooting, right?
Right.
And you can kind of dress that up and you can have that there for a week. That's huge.
It is huge.
So that's like the biggest money saver is, you know, as few locations as possible. It's also worthy of noting, like we talked about, if you just turn the camera around, you have a whole different scene going on.
Right.
And it's funny because I'm thinking that gymnasium thing, right? Where Sebastian Haft's, you know, dressing room. I thought, you know, you can see him in one side and you can see Elvis walking in the other. And they're really different.
They are.
Right? You can tell it's the same room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But just those two shots, there's two very different feels. Like Sebastian's sitting there because he's cluttered with all that stuff in the corner by the window. And he's hunched over like he's almost in a closet. You get that feeling like almost claustrophobic. And then you cut away. He's like, oh, he's got this giant ass room. Here comes the king. Like he's walking through the throne room.
Well, I mean, it was probably, you know, purposefully done as kind of a dichotomy between the lifestyles of those two characters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And you didn't need two locations for that.
No.
It was literally put some stuff here, and then this looks like this over here.
Right.
Kind of thing. So, yeah, locations can make or break.
Well, yeah.
You know.
I mean, if you're in your apartment or your whatever it is, you know, your house right now, the room that you're in, if you're in a room, I mean, we're in our little den, which is kind of our office and recording space, and where we keep all our cool action figures and our scripts. And I mean, you face this wall and it's completely different than every single other wall in here.
Yeah, as we're sitting here, you're looking at all of our wonderful toys and figures and collectibles and stuff. And I'm looking at Tommy.
Yeah.
A bunch of, you know, sound panels.
A whiteboard with all of our notes.
A whiteboard with notes, and then Gambit up in the corner there.
Hey, Gambit.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, it's very different feels. And that's the thing that you need to, as a director or as a producer, right? Because producers a lot of times have to run out and find this stuff, put it together. You know, just keep that in mind. You know, limit locations, work with what you've got, because you can make anything work.
You can.
And do it purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my PSA, if you're going to do guerrilla shooting, make it some really benign stuff. Right?
Yeah.
A conversation, someone walking across the street in Tokyo, that's nothing. Okay?
Right.
Shooting in a hotel room, and the hotel didn't give you permission to do it. That's not cool, but that's guerrilla shooting. It's not going to get anybody hurt, right? Because they're just sitting having a conversation on a bed. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a guy holding up a woman and a cop intervening on the street, do it right.
Right.
Do it right. Because you're putting not just the people in your production at risk, but everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and yeah, just, you know, be cognizant of what's going on in doing that.
Yeah.
You know, now, one thing I want to jump on before we leave here
Do it.
So we have Bruce Campbell heavily made up to be an aged Elvis.
Yes.
And then we have Ossie Davis, who is naturally old. Right? Well, he is. He's
right.
up there in this film.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's had a long career before this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I loved seeing him in this, and this is interesting because, like I say, he's been in a ton of movies, ton of film. He is such a super excellent actor. But when this was made, there's still that Hollywood thing where once you reach a certain age, you're done.
Right.
You only play bit parts of the old man and this and that. They tried a long time ago with Space Cowboys, bringing in Donald Sutherland and, Clint Eastwood and all these very aged actors.
Yeah.
To play aged astronauts. And it was beautiful to see, but it didn't quite go anywhere yet. And even though Ossie Davis was in a B movie, and you say that as well, because he could be he could bring in money. The guy could act. But it was so nice to see him kicking it. And unfortunately, a couple of years after he passed. So Ossie's, hasn't been with us for a while. But it was, seeing this is also this is kind of where it began, It's these kinds of movies that put, actors of a certain age, right, in film, in front of audiences. And now we have things like one of our favorite shows that hit Netflix is The Kaminsky Method.
Right. And then there is Grace and Frankie.
So we have Alan Arkin, Michael Douglas, Jane Fonda,
Lily Tomlin,
Martin Sheen, oh my God.
They're so wonderful.
Talent doesn't stop.
Right.
When you get to a specific age. And I love that Hollywood is seeing that.
Yes.
Because you know what? I will pay for, if I had to pay per episode to see Kaminsky Method, I love Michael Douglas, but Alan Arkin is, to me, he is royalty. I have loved him forever. And I will see anything he's in and I will pay to see it.
Yeah.
Because he's just wonderful.
He really is.
And with the same thing with Jane Fonda and Martin Sheen and Lily Tomlin, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, that it's unfortunate that Ossie left us, because I think he would have found a new footing, as many actors who have left us in the last 10 years would have found new footing and newfound fame.
Right.
Because it kills me that people have seen all these things that he's in and probably don't know his name.
I know.
And like our daughter isn't going to have a clue. If it weren't for us, pumping her full of vintage
knowledge,
stuff, right? It's all going to kind of go away.
It is.
But I just wanted to touch on that because it's kind of a big thing for me.
And I think a part of the reason why this movie did get the $1 million that it did was because I think they put it together as a package, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had people like Bruce Campbell and Ossie Davis, and the studios knew that at least was going to bring them some money.
Yeah.
So they cut that little check.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a little check, but
right.
And that's something that not a lot of people can do it, but if you can manage to get someone who is known attached to your project, that is a good way to get fundraising accomplished.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about some movies by Larry Cohen later on in the months to come. And I've been, I think I mentioned before, I've been emailing with Lorene Landon, who has worked with Larry Cohen for years and years and years and years. And it's one of these things where we see movies where, like Lorene has been
tons of movies
over 20 years, been rocking movies, right? And just because they're in that non-tent pole realm doesn't get the advertising.
Right.
See, technically, I'm just going to say it, Star Wars was a B movie when they put it out. Like I said, studio didn't care. They gave this guy a check, like, fucking do it, whatever. It's one of our nuggets. It'll probably make some money, whatever. Little did they know. Right? And I saw 2 or 3 commercials for Star Wars before it hit the theaters here. I mean, they spent a lot of money on it, and it was local advertising.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it was a fucking silly movie called Star Wars on the heels of a movie called Logan's Run. That they, all this. So, yeah, there are tons of actors out there. Well, let's talk about Billy D. Williams. Is in the last episode of Star Wars, reprising his role as Lando Calrissian.
Yes.
Billy D. has made a few rounds of like Comic-Cons and some circuits, but he's been kind of mostly just doing his own thing, right?
Yeah.
Because Billy D. Williams was of a certain age.
Right.
Right? And there aren't those parts readily offered. Doesn't mean he can't act as good as he did. Because I know he's like one of the reasons I'm going to this. The story has already lost me. I could give a shit. And all we're going to see is my favorite people as ghosts. Whatever. I don't even know. But I'm going to go see Billy D. Williams.
Heckin' yeah.
Kick it one last time.
Yes.
As the suavest fucking space pilot ever.
So fucking smooth.
Oh my God. Oh. I would be his foot servant if I was offered the job. He is so cool. Anyway, if you're in an area where you can make contact, look for people. Don't be afraid.
Right.
Don't be afraid, because there are people who, they want to work.
Yeah.
Right. And they might, and there's people who might have 5 or 6 little films to their credit, right? Little shorts and stuff, but they're a name.
Yes.
And that's the thing. So if you want to throw something like this together and you have a limited budget and you want to get more money, find someone to attach to it. You're going to be far easier finding an actor that he or she will be like, yeah, I'd love to. This sounds fun.
People are more likely to recognize the name of an actor from several B movies than they are to recognize the name of a writer or director of several B movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is.
It is. And as writers, we know, we'll build the fort, but get no glory. I mean, that's how it goes.
It's fine.
But it's the actors who do it all. Without the actors, we provide the words and the story, but it's what they do with it.
Well, they make it memorable and real.
Right. And then the director has a hand on either turning it into a turd or doing a good job. Fantastic Four. Anyway, I didn't say that.
Stop it.
I won't.
You're incorrigible.
I will be until that is erased from my brain like eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Burn it out. But
I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to point out with this film is the writing. Oh, one last thing. The adaptation.
Adaptation.
Yeah. So this was a short story.
Yes.
And we've done an adaptation.
Yeah.
From a book of short poems. And we wrote a short film about it.
Very short.
It was hard.
It was hard.
Now,
I mean, making a poem into 12 pages, 11 or 12 pages.
Yeah.
That was tough.
It was. And we've talked about turning it into a feature.
Yeah.
Which I think we could do, but it'll be a little rough. I can see where there were elements in this movie where it seemed like, okay, there's this giant gap. So I'm on, page 4 of the short story. In between paragraph 7 and 8. I got to fill that. Right? And I think that's where a lot of the protracted backstory, because you can't have a short story with that much backstory. Where's the action?
Well, yeah.
In small doses.
Right. And I haven't read the short story, which maybe I should have done that before doing this, but I mean, if you're writing a short story about Elvis, who has impersonated an impersonator of himself, you can safely assume that your reading audience pretty much knows Elvis's backstory.
Right.
And you don't really have to write that in.
And that's just it. Yeah. But the thing about adaptations is it's really a big thing right now. They talk about all over, like Stage 32 is talking about it. If you can grab a hold of an IP, and like, here's a hint, Sherlock Holmes. People, did you know Sherlock Holmes is public domain?
Creative Commons.
Yeah. Anyone can use any of that stuff. So, and that's an IP. It's an intellectual property. Mm-hmm. We've had people tell us to turn our sci-fi pilot into a graphic novel so that it's an IP attached to the pilot.
Right.
Because everyone's looking for IPs.
Yes.
There's a certain level of security there.
And having an already built-in audience. Right.
And they don't have to sell it. It's Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
Everyone gets it. Mm-hmm. So, that's one thing is, you can look for IPs. And if you find something, reach out to people. Man. Reach out to people. If you're a writer, even if you're a director, and you see it, you come across some short story in some ratty little publication like some of mine showed up in, where you're like, goddamn, that makes me think. Find out where the author is. Get their contact information. Contact the publication, whatever. Set it up. Reach out to them and say, hey, would you be willing to let me do something with this?
Right.
Because I tell you what, it's an IP. As soon as someone sees based on the short story, the story, or whatever, bam, you are 3 steps higher than you would have ever thought you were in terms of securing some kind of financing. Yeah. That's just as good as, Billy D. Williams said he'd show up and play this part for 3 minutes. Right. Let me write that check.
Right. And the worst that can happen if you reach out and ask someone is that they say no.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you just move on to something else.
But I would be cautious if you reach out and ask someone and they say, well, write something and show it to me. Right. And then we'll see. Yeah. Because then you're just kind of doing the work for free.
Right. If it's going to work out, what's going to happen is there's going to be a conversation. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, what do you mean? What do you this? You're going to get to know each other. Yeah. And you're going to be honest and have discussions. Yeah. Okay. And, if someone's coming after my stuff, I'm going to have a lot of questions. Yeah. You're going to have to get legal with it. Right. So this isn't like guerrilla filming. You're going to have contracts. You're going to have to contact a lawyer, make sure everybody's protected. Because even if it's a little thing, right? You just never know when a little thing will become a big thing. Look at the short film Cargo.
Oh my gosh.
That's on our list too.
I remember seeing that short film, and then I absolutely, immediately I went to you and I was like, you have to watch this.
And then I watched it. I'm like, God, that was
well done.
One of the best short films I've ever seen. Yeah. And apparently Hollywood thought so too.
Well, it won a lot of awards in all the little festivals it entered.
And it got their attention, and bam.
Netflix original film.
With Bilbo fucking Baggins.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that meme. Anyway. So, I just wanted to throw that in. Adaptations, any kind of IP, attaching people to your project is going to help you get financing, help you get noticed. It certainly isn't going to hurt the marketing. Nope. All right. And I think with that, we are going to bring this to a close.
Yes. All right. So here's where we say, please visit our website. Go to lordsofmisrulproductions.com. Check out our blog. Check out our podcast page. Check out our About Us. Find out who we are.
Exactly. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo for the B-side. You can get to that through the link on our website. You can't search for us on Patreon because I say fucking shit way too much.
I know. We're sweary.
Yeah, adult-themed projects can't be searched on, but that's fine. That's fair. We got a link on our website. Just go to lordsofmisrulproductions.com.
Right.
Also,
we're on Facebook.
We're on Facebook.
We're on Twitter.
We're on Twitter and now Instagram.
Hey.
Those links will be on the website. Check us out. Follow us. You can subscribe to us. We've got so many platforms now. Still waiting for Pandora at this point. So it was iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio.
Blueberry.
Yeah, we're in Blueberry's directory. There's just anything. And here's the thing, folks. If you're listening and you don't see us on our site, you don't see a subscribe to link to what you're using, shoot us a note. We got some email links on the website. Just send it and say, hey, I'd love to subscribe to your show, but this is what I listen to. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many out there.
We will. And you can also subscribe via RSS, which works on most platforms.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, subscribe to our podcast. Also, leave reviews, especially if you're listening through iTunes. Please leave a review or at least rate us. Folks, it's murderous. You know how it is. It's based on likes and stars and traffic and all that. So, let the world know that you're listening. The army is out there. And while that's going on, we're going to be here putting together our next episode for our next Bee Darling.
I'm so excited. We're not going to tell you, though.
No, we won't. Yeah, we won't share until it gets there.
I will say that it's seasonally related.
Yes, it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
I'm Danny.
I'm Jim. We are the Lords of Misrule Productions, coming to you through Bravo for the B-side. And we'll talk at you next week.
Yeah, we will.
Bye.